Up next, we have Matt Kreinheder. Dr. Matt helps entrepreneurs and high performers bridge the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual gaps between where they are and where life is truly calling them to be. He is the staff writer and editor for the Association of Reorganizational Healing Practice and has articles in professional publications across the globe. Please give a warm round of applause to Matt.
Whenever I'm with a mic stand, I feel like a stand-up comic. Yeah. I do this thing when I speak where I don't ever really know what I'm going to talk about. And then usually about 90 seconds right before I speak, it just kind of lands. So about 90 seconds ago, well, before I got up and moved the mic stand like a stand-up comic, I just had the download of what this was going to be, and I want to talk about the destructive power of the soul. When I heard Chaim speak, what I really realized is his journey is a spiritual odyssey. Did you guys get that? Yeah. He was cracked open. And when you're in those moments of absolute, profound, deep despair, and the only place to go is up, that's when the light comes down. That's when it shines on us. And in those moments, we have to step into a new version of who we must be. Now, the tricky thing is most people hear light, they hear soul, and they get this image of birds and butterflies and flowers and all this cool, spiritual, sexy stuff, right? Anyone been on the other side of that conversation with spirituality? Right? The soul is inherently destructive to anything unlike itself. Anything that is not aligned with the absolute truth of who you are must be systematically torn apart by the light and the truth of who we are. And this is true for men and for women. Here's what's especially important for men. We're not told it's safe to be torn apart. We have to be strong, like all of my men share. We have to be present. We have to be men. And it's not okay to be torn apart and taken bit by bit. But if the persona of who you've been being is not in alignment with who you must be, there's a gap. And that gap is not going to work. So we go through this systematic destruction of our persona in the physical, in the emotional, in the mental, through the spiritual process. But I want to talk about those realms a little bit. Have any of you, or have you known anyone who's had a spiritual awakening and then led you to being physically ill, maybe for a prolonged period of time? Yeah, a couple hands. Right? Because there's so much light streaming through the system now that how you have organized this being is not going to work. It has to fundamentally shift and change. So recognizing that we need to start being our beingness, our human beingness, right, in a new way is critical. It's critical. And I'll say for most people, the reason that happens is an avoidance of the truth they got woken up to in a moment, and then they try to go back to who they were being before. Avoid that long enough, and your body's gonna say, "Oh, hey, remember we made this like agreement to be like a bigger version of who we were, and you're the rent's due on that one. Sorry." So, I'm in the conversation with people all the time who have physical maladies and diseases, anything from pain to cancer. And the part of the conversation is always, well, what's the truth of who you must be being? And for men, God bless us, we want to hide from them. It's scary. It's scary to be that big and that vulnerable. And that usually leads to the next part of the conversation, which is the emotional. And this is where I see absolutely the most opportunity and simultaneously the most pain. There is a typical range of expression people are used to having, and it's usually 4 to 5 emotions, and it's in a very specific window of what of those emotions they'll feel. So in the anger family, they might feel frustration or agitation, but they won't feel anger, they won't feel rage, and they won't feel hate. And when you stunt the full range of emotion, anything that you repress must manifest someplace else, right? So part of the work that I do with people is helping them have a full expression of their emotional range. And it is absolutely critical for us men to be able to be in absolute despair and absolute suffering. And this is often harder for most men, absolute joy and bliss and transcendent beauty and purity. It's critical to who we are. And if we've made the agreement with the soul that we must do that and we avoid it, it will create chaos. It will create chaos in our relationships. It will create chaos in our job, in our professional life, because we must stand in the truth of who we are. So one of the things that I want to share with you guys is how I help people do that. And this is a little ninja trick for you guys with the emotions. And that's when you have that big emotional rush in the body, right? It's anger, it's intensity, it's sadness, it's fear. There's 2 processes typically happening. There's an emotional process, which is just a biochemical flood in the body. And then there's a mental process about what it means. And usually they're wrapped up like this awful little cinnamon bun that we're just choking on. All glazed with awfulness. And the magic of this experience is when you can drop the story and just let the emotion move. Drop what it means about you, about who you've ever been, about who you have to be, what your dad told you, what your teachers told you. Just let the emotion move through the body. The biochemical flood of emotions is meant to last from seconds to minutes, at the most 15 to 20 minutes. Anytime your emotions last longer than that, you're thinking thoughts and you're trying to think your feelings. If you can just drop the meaning and the thoughts and be in the present moment of the emotion, then it all just moves. So we did physical, we did emotional, let's do mental. And that is being fundamentally willing to completely reprioritize what your belief system is and commit to what your soul and what your calling is really demanding of your life. Yeah?
Yeah.
Does that feel good?
Yeah.
And then the soul gets to have a heyday with your life. It gets to turn your life into an absolute field day. And we get to have fun. And we get to be in the mastery of who we are. And this is a room, both again with my brothers here and with all of you, that is dedicated to mastery. So my invitation for you is, as you're in the experience of the soul cracking you open, be present to that. Be vulnerable to that. And commit to your mastery.